I hear the question from Kevin about all the moisture we're getting in the Northeast and what's happening. Is it paths getting diverted, or is there some other explanation? And when I talk about weather that we get in the Northeast, especially with how it might change and is changing because of anthropogenic climate change, I like to first separate into pieces that are related to the paths, but also pieces that are related to just how much rain can fall. And the amount that can fall is a little bit easier to explain, because in that case, we have some pretty good understanding from lab work and just from empirical observations that in warmer temperatures, there's more water vapor in the air, so more moisture. And it's just because there's more evaporation off the ocean. And so with anthropogenic climate change, we're going to see warmer and warmer temperatures and bigger rain events. Now, in terms of where the rain is actually falling, this is a question that requires more study, but there's some things that I can mention right away. When you're looking at satellite images of clouds, or when you're looking at animations of the radar for the contiguous United States, one can get the impression that there are storms that are passing from the southwest of the United States up over towards us. And while it's true that the winds, like the jet stream, can make that sort of passage, the moisture, a lot of the water vapor that would be falling in the southwest would never be able to make it over to the Northeast because of the Rocky Mountains. And so most of the moisture we get in the Northeast is actually sourced from Gulf of Mexico or evaporated off the land over the Midwest or the Southeast, Ohio Valley region. And so we can talk about things being diverted, but it's maybe a little different from how Kevin first thought about it. And I would say a big thing that happened this year in the summer was the Midwest got a lot less rain. So my in-laws live in Minnesota, and they know that I study atmospheric science, so they tell me a lot about their weather conditions. And this year they were in a drought for a while in Minnesota. And so a lot of the rainfall that they usually get in summer, we were getting. And that change in the path of the storms relates more to just year-to-year differences in large-scale pressure over the Atlantic Ocean, large-scale pressure over the Pacific Ocean, and then forcing the jet stream to be farther north or farther south, and therefore the storms that grow off the jet stream being located in a specific place. So we did have an extreme amount of rain this summer, and like for July, for instance, not just the New York area, but the Massachusetts area got over like 300% more rain than usual. And that diversion of the storms is not easily pinpointed on one thing, but the big factors that affect it are the big pressure patterns, what we call the subtropical anticyclones that sit in the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean and are very large in expanse in summer. The pinpointing the exact detail of what caused the diversion is like an exciting question, and research that is going on right now. But for this past summer, I couldn't yet tell you that. Like I could do that attribution study, but it would I would need the data for this past summer to first be organized, which is happening, and then it would take time to kind of piece together what it is. So it's a terrific and interesting question. And I started out with the easy part of the answer, because that's the one we really know, which is we get more rainfall when it's wetter. We can also add that this year we got unlucky in terms of the number of tropical cyclones or hurricanes that moved up into our region, because when those things move up into our region, they bring a lot of moisture with them. And so, in more recent past, we got big dumpings of rain because of the hurricanes themselves moving so far north. So that's Henri and Ida. I I'd like to discuss more of these type questions. So Kevin, if you have other questions, then you should get my email address from Lisa Beth, and I'd love to answer them, or try. You can see I just try to answer them.
Do you think farmers can expect more rain? Like
Yeah, we have a general sense that it will be that with time, the amount of rainfall that's going to occur is going to be more, but we also have longer historical records. Like we can dig into or bore a hole into a tree and get longer records from the tree rings. And those show us that the Northeast has had droughts occasionally in the past. So it's not impossible for the Northeast to fall into like a 1 or 2 year drought. We're all hoping that that's not the case, but it's not. It has happened in the past.
with the warmer weather, will the Northeast be a climate change winner?
No, I don't think we're going to have any winners, unfortunately, because the ecosystem, first, we know that ecosystems really need to be diverse to be healthy. And we know that the ecosystem evolved to its current diversity based on the current climate. And so with climate change, even if things like growing seasons get longer, the susceptibility of the plants to pests might also increase. And so it's really kind of tricky to claim climate winners. I think the other thing we've seen for the Northeast is, unfortunately, we can become, the probability of us getting hit by really big hurricanes increases. So there's an observed trend where the latitude at which the storms hit their maximum strength is moving north. And so that for us just means increase in exposure to the natural hazards.
Okay, I think that I have things that I can pull out from what you said, but I did say that we would do it in two pieces, so let's do it in two pieces. What would you like to say? What would you like to have as your short answers on camera to the questions of climate change, to the expectations of more storms and more rain for Northeast farmers?
Yeah, I would say we have trends already being observed, that there's been increases in the likelihood or the occurrence of the most extreme rain events. And the creation of a rain event is due to how much water you have and then how much lifting or convergences there is in the air. And even if the lifting and convergence doesn't change at all, we're going to have more moisture, so we're going to have more rain events. Will the path of the storms change? That is much more difficult to detect. And the answer I always like to give people is, if you think about 1 year to the next, how different things are, that variability is really large for our region. And so that makes it hard to say, oh, we're gonna see a shift in the storms, because right now the storms that you get from 1 year to the next in terms of your number, but also in terms of the path, is really variable, and that variability will remain. And so a small shift in the general path will be hard for us to detect until probably 50 or 60 years out from now.
Can you tell me what we talked about? Because I think it might have gotten lost in my bad bandwidth. We had said, it's easy as an overview to think that the moisture we're getting is coming from the drought in the West, but really the Rocky Mountains.
All right. Yeah, I do think looking at weather on the contiguous US scale, you get this impression that the storms are migrating all the way from the Southwest over into our region. But because of the Rocky Mountains, it's difficult for very much of the moisture to arrive in our region from the southwest. So most of the moisture we're getting is instead moisture that either was sourced from the Gulf of Mexico or evaporated off the land in kind of wetter regions of the US, like the Ohio Valley.
A farmer who's trying to prep himself and his farm and trying to just be ahead of the whole thing, and he's looking at a weather map, what part of the weather map should concern him as it moves towards destroying his world? Sorry, that was not funny. That was not
yeah. Well, I mean, so the storms that really affect us a lot in the Northeast are usually storms that develop over the Midwest and then merge with another storm that's coming up the coastline. And so it's not often, but in these rare cases where you get mergers between two existing storms, that's the recipe for real problems in terms of giant rain events. In terms of really strong wind events, we know that those are actually storms that take more of a southwest to northeast path. So the storms that are traveling kind of along the Appalachians or from the Ohio Valley towards the New York region, those are able or they're positioned in the right place where their strongest winds hit us. And so when we're thinking about devastation from storms, we can actually kind of separate out into those that are going to be really bad for rain and those that are going to be really bad for winds. And the last one would be for people who live on the coast, so those that are really bad for coastal flooding. And at least for the winds case, it's kind of distinct from the big precipitation case.
Do you think there's anything else that I'm missing that I think we've answered his questions, and so gracious of you to invite him to ask you things specifically. I can't tell you, he's just a wonderful guy, and I think you'll enjoy him. But anything that you would like the general public to know in terms of broadcasting, in terms of an answer for media?
I would say something good to point out is for a 1.5, 2 day forecast, we're doing really well in terms of knowing where the storms are coming from. When you get to a 5-day forecast, there's uncertainty, and there's more uncertainty about the intensification of the rain than there is uncertainty about the path of the storm. When you go to seasonal timescales, we can say things like, it's probably going to be wetter this year, but we can't tell you more about the paths of the storms on a seasonal timescale. And then when you get to climate, the things we can say for sure is we're making it warmer, and that because of that, there's likely going to be more water vapor in the air. And so for wet places like the Northeast, it's going to get wetter.